Hey everyone, Lex Levinrad over here, and I'm here with my student Marcus, and just doing a little ad hoc interview here. So Marcus has basically just listed this week his first fix and flip,
Right.
and this property is in Lehigh Acres. You purchased that for $115,000,
Correct.
right? And I gave Marcus a hard money loan for $105,000. So basically, he put $10,000 down. I gave him the hard money loan, and he spent, you said, $45,000 in repairs.
Around that number, yes.
So basically, now he's just listed it this week at $214,000, and expectation is to make around $25,000 to $30,000 profit. So he has, for people watching this, Marcus. So here's what they want to know. This is your first deal.
Right.
You came to my boot camp, and then you signed up for my coaching, and you're in the process of basically completing your first fix and flip.
Yep.
So share a little bit about that experience. Tell everyone a little bit about that.
So definitely. We are in this together probably around a year or so. When I started to become your student, and I really enjoyed the ride because didn't miss any of the the events and all the the lectures. And for me it was a great ride because allowed me to gain this confidence that I was looking for. And and the support and guidance, right? I think I already mentioned that to you before. Your positive and your clarity and your vision makes a big difference. So every time that I see that I'm screwing up here or there, so let me go back and see what Lex's recommendation would be, and you twist my ear sometimes here and there. I know I'm not one of your best students, but I think for me it has been transformational.
Yeah.
Because it is a opportunity that I've been looking to, make this a reality for me.
Right.
And for my son down the road, my goal is kind of work together with him. I don't know if that's his plan. We're gonna see how that goes.
Right.
But at least he would be able to experience that and see how that the kind of environment is viable and feasible to achieve, especially, if you're becoming into this game in a young age, right? Like some of your students. And for me, it has been, like I said, one of great experiences, getting through the motions of doing the rehab and the issues and all those kind of things. And now I'm experiencing the sales side. My son got the realtor's license, as I mentioned before to you. And he's also very excited about that. And so we kind of circle around the fix and flip kind of domain, and I'm looking forward to experience the other domains, so I can definitely get my hands wet in every single area and get more exposure and experience. That has been my thought.
So now a couple of things that you mentioned, like first of all, one thing you mentioned was the some of the mistakes that you made. So give me an example of some of the mistakes that you feel like you made in your first fix and flip.
Well, one of the mistakes that I believe I made was I under budget some of the
which is very common.
Some of the, and I kind of sense that I should have paid more attention to some of the details that popped up.
So you spent this deal had but what did you anticipate it was going to be when you first bought the house?
When I originally had in mind to spend 35. And I was planning to have 10 in reserve, right? And I kind of spent 45 and kept the 10 in reserve, right? Because I had issues with pull, things that kind of go into the under the radar screen.
Right.
But when they pop up, you gotta have to address it.
Right. So now you're originally from Brazil, right?
Yeah.
So the thing for you guys is that Marcus has a full-time job, right? So you're an engineer,
yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And so how many hours a week do you work on your engiering job?
Probably 500 hours a week. And very
realistically
realistically speaking, I would say it's 8 hours job. Yes, it's
a
full-time.
full-time job.
Yes.
So you do this fix and flip primarily on the weekends?
Oh yes, weekends and checking some things during the evenings. When I got a person to become my kind of right arm on the rehab side. So he was helping me to buy some of the materials and those kind of things. So helped me a lot.
Okay.
And
but that probably cost you too a little bit because you had to pay them as well, right?
Yes, of course. It was a little bit above the numbers that we originally thought on the spend, but it was well spent, and and had the security.
Now, even with some of the mistakes that are made and spending a little bit over budget, you still are looking to make about 25,000, 30,000 profit on this deal, right?
Oh, yeah, about that.
So you mentioned something before about when you signed up for my coaching program and you felt like I gave you the boost of confidence. So can you explain to somebody who's never, like, let's say, done a coaching or been to one of my boot camps, what does that look like? What is it that takes somebody who works a full 9-to-5 job who wants to learn how to fix and flip houses, and that gives them that confidence to move forward and do a deal?
Oh, absolutely. Number one, I stand by the comments that I made on your website. So you folks are free to check that.
You mean the testimonial?
The testimonial side, yeah. So
what did you say in that? I don't remember.
Yeah. I was actually reading that a few days ago because we got 6,000 hits on that comment, so it was interesting. So for me, the most impressive and impactful thing was your clarity, your vision. Of course, your skills on moving your fear needle are very good, right? So you kind of motivational side is definitely.
So for those of you who don't understand that, we talk quite a bit about that at the boot camp. So I talk about the fear needle, and so what happens with most people are very conservative. Their fear needle is all the way on the left, right? And my goal is to try and push people to get their fear needle off of that and into a new area where you can take on ventures that you wouldn't consider before, because a lot of people are really stuck, very, very conservative, not wanting to take any risk, and doing something like fixing and flipping definitely has risk, right? Because maybe you sell a house for less than you anticipated, maybe repairs cost more, maybe your contractor disappears in the middle of the job. In fact, didn't your first contractor disappear?
Yes.
You had to hire someone else?
Exactly. So all those problems, they might exist, but the bottom line is you have to be into this to make it work, to make it happen, right? And I think your tweaks on the fear needle are kind of fantastic, because you not only provide the clarity, the vision, and how to do it, and you come up with a bunch of arguments why you should do it, no discussions at all. But even for someone that's rational, say, "Oh, should I do that? Should I not do that?" Then when you twist that the angle, I think everybody gets really ready to move.
Well, you see, because I think
so that's something that I think it's a talent that you have. That's it's definitely.
I appreciate that. Because I think that here's
fantastic.
the thing for some of you that are watching this is that if you work on a 9-to-5 job, and statistically 95% of you watching this work on a 9-to-5 job just like Marcus does, you see, your big challenge is how to get over that hurdle. How do I get from here to there? In other words, how do I get from the place where I don't make enough money, I'm not crazy about my job, I don't have enough savings, and I got credit card debt, how do I move from there to the place where I have abundance and there's lots of money in my checking account, I have no debt, and I've got savings, and I've got some rental properties, and I'm fixing and flipping on the side, as an example.
Right.
So the only way you can fathom that, move from here to there, is by learning how to exercise your risk muscle and getting comfortable with the concept of making $25,000 or $30,000 on a fix and flip, which means you do need to take some risk. You've got to borrow money to do a fix and flip. You've got to be able to overcome that fear of picking a property. So one of the advantages of being a coaching student is that I make it easy, because in this case I gave Marcus this property and I said, hey, this would be a good fix and flip. And I even took another one of my students, Cristiano, and said, hey, if he buys this property, I know you've got another one that you're working on right now in Lehigh Acres, can you supervise it, and can you get your crew to help on this job, so that they're basically helping Marcus out on his first deal, and then not only finding the property but having somebody to supervise the rehab. But in addition to that, me coming up and saying, hey, you just put 10 down and I'll loan you the rest of the money, is what will give someone like Marcus, who's a beginner, who's never done this before, the confidence to say, okay, I'm moving forward and I'm doing this. And now once the project's complete, you had a little bit of a delay in selling this because your goal was to get your son Brian licensed.
That's right.
So that you could save the 3%. So you paid a little bit more in interest, but now you save the 3%.
It was a motivation for him to come and be part of the team,
Okay.
right? So that's
Okay,
you know,
I
it's,
understand.
yeah.
All right, so he got his real estate license.
I know it might not be kind of financially accurate to you know the delay that I
Yes.
took, but it was you know with the
It's very
intent of
common. Many of our students come and bring their, if they have children that are older that have finished high school, finished college. A lot of times they'll bring them into the fray and want to teach them about flipping as well. But so now he's listing the property and you got deal number one. Now what's going to happen is when you get to deal number two, you're going to find that the ability to move forward a little quicker is going to be easier for you. And the reason is because your risk needle's moved a little bit. Your fear needle's not all the way stuck in the left. It's now moved a little bit. You're not as afraid because you've said, hey, even on a deal that took longer to sell than I anticipated, even on a deal where the contractor disappeared on me, and even on the deal where I spent $10,000 more in repairs than I initially planned, I'm still probably going to make $25,000 or $30,000 profit. Meaning, if you had kept your fear needle on the left and not done the deal, you wouldn't have that $25,000 or $30,000 profit.
And that's exactly the line of thought that I had. Especially when you present that, in your sessions and your even your head, the writings that you sent to the over the phone. That's the goal. You gotta have to, envision that, see that, believe, and jump into the water, into the pool, and make it happen.
Right.
And even if you're not doing any positive result, it's a learning experience, and will make you better for the next time.
Right.
So,
well, that's why I often say, like at my boot camp, a lot of times I'll tell students, especially at the fix and flip boot camp, I'll say, like, listen, if you do my coaching, you'll make more money on your first fix and flip than the entire cost of the coaching program. So it's entirely dependent on you, because as a coaching student, I'm going to find the property for you. I can even get my crew to rehab the property for you, and I'm going to put up the capital, the vast majority, 90% of it. You put down 10 and I'll put down the other 90. So I'm basically taking students. He was just using an analogy that I use in my trainings, where I say, how people say, well, Lex, how do you know when the time is right to make that decision? So I say it's very simple. You know how you walk up to a swimming pool and the water's freezing, and you dip your toe in and you think, wow, it's a little cold, right? So how do you ultimately make that decision to go into the water, right? You can say, well, I'm not going in, it's too cold. But most people don't do that. What do? They finally make a decision. They're just going to jump in, right? They're just going to get it over with. So it's the same thing with this. At some points in time, you just have to make that decision. You just have to say, I'm going to do a fix and flip. And the reason I think that is so important for you to understand is, what's your alternative? Is your alternative just working a 9 to 5, year after year after year, until one day you retire, and then what? Then nothing, right? So you have one life to live, and you might as well make the best go of it as you can. You're trying to get from this life here to that life there. You're trying to get from credit card debt and not enough money and maybe a job you're not crazy about, to having financial independence and freedom and security for yourself and your family. Right. And learning how to do something like fix and flip is a great way to do them, and how to channel that gap, if you will. So Marcus, what would you say if someone was watching this? Let's say I've got this video on my YouTube channel, right? Okay. And make sure you subscribe if you like this video, and feel free to share it. But so let's say you're watching this video right now, and you've never flipped a house or never been to a real estate training program. So what would you say to that person watching right now?
Well, this industry is fascinating because it allows you to, structure a deal and learn things that are really very unique. And I think there's different types of opportunities that you could explore. I decided to do the fix and flip, but definitely the landlording is very appealing, and the wholesale is fantastic in this market that we are right now. So get the knowledge, I think, is very important. Don't be afraid to be out of your comfort level. I think that's something that,
get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's something definitely, and try, because like you said, time is very unique, right? Yeah. So if you lost that opportunity in the time window, you lost it, and you're going to be regretted down the road.
100%. So
I think for folks that are watching this video, it's something that you got to make in your own decision. Say, yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm going to go, and don't go blind, but go and check the facts. No one's better than Lex. I call Lex the encyclopedia encyclopedia person, because every time he backs up with the statistics, I kind of he blows me out of the way. So how he can come from the 1944 kind of market, house market, bring to 2019, all the evaluations and the increases in the market. So it's fascinating to watch you talking there.
You're analytical because you're an engineer.
Yeah.
So some people don't enjoy that as much, but the thing is, one thing about people that are the analytical types, like the engineers and the computer scientists of the world, is that they like to have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed. And the thing is that at a certain point in time, you're going to get to that cold pool. And there's only so much planning you can do at a certain point in time.
Yeah.
You just make a decision. You're either going to go for it, or you're going to back away, keep your fear needle on the left and say, no, I'm going to stay safe, right? Stay safe with the money in the CD, the comfort and security. I call it the acorn effect, like a squirrel in a tree and sees an acorn down on the ground. Mm-hmm. It runs down and grabs that acorn, it runs right up that tree and it holds onto that acorn for dear life. And that's how most people view their savings account, right? It's like that acorn. They hold onto it for dear life. They believe that money is scarce. They believe it's very hard to get money. Why? Because they worked so many hours on a job for so many years and they've only managed to save a little bit. But when you start getting into understanding that you can make 25 or 30,000 on a fix and flip, you could do that every 6 months, and you could do 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, you start realizing that money is indeed in abundance. The thing that stops people from having that abundance be in their pocket is a skill set. Yeah. For example, a skill set of knowing how to find a good deal, or knowing how to fund a deal, or knowing how to fix up the property. And so that's what we teach on the coach. And
having access to a person like you, I think makes a big difference. And when I look into you initially, I said, well, he has this training and this. I think for me to be able to have his full attention, and be part of his circle, right? Mm-hmm. Or inner circle, I would say. I need to really to get into this, and that makes a big difference, because sometimes you just reply in a text saying, yeah, go forward, yes, I'll back you up or something. It makes a big difference in different aspects, and I think it's something that I appreciate a lot.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Well, so what Marcus is speaking about right now is having the confidence level to move forward and go with the deal. And so there's 2 things I always say to students, right? So one of them I have is I say, on a new student, you're going to buy this house, this is what it's going to cost to fix up, and I'm going to give you what we call a back out clause. And how does that work? It's like this. You're going to buy the house, I'm going to loan you the money, and you're going to fix up the house. When the house is done, if at any point in time, during that rehab or at the end of the rehab, you feel uncomfortable, all you have to say is, I want my money back, and I will give you the purchase price of the house plus everything you spent in repairs back. That's how confident I am that the only thing stopping you is having that confidence to move forward. Because when we do that, and I was explaining at the boot camp with Andy, so Andy was really afraid, right? He bought a house for $130, he borrowed $120.
Right. And it's his 6th house now, right?
Yeah, now he's on his 7th house.
7th house, oh wow.
And he's 29 years old, by the way, and he's got $600,000 in equity. But anyway, so in his first house, he puts $10,000 down, and I loan him $120. And I say, Andy, how do you feel? And I hit him on the back, and he's like, worried. I'm like, what are you worried about? He's like, I'm just worried. I said, yeah, but about what? He said, I'm just afraid. I said, what are you afraid of? He says, I'm afraid that the house won't appraise. I'm afraid I won't be able to rent the house. I'm afraid that I won't find somebody to fix the house. I'm afraid I won't be able to make the interest payments. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of fear you got going on over there, right? But ultimately what I said to him, and I say this to all students of mine that are coaching students, I say, listen, you're going to buy this house, and at any point in time, if you feel like you want to back out, you just let me know, right? You just say, I want to back out, and I'll cut you a check for what you paid to buy this house and your repairs, and then I'll take the house and sell it. And every time when the house is done, like look, for example, you bought this house and you paid $115,000 for it, and you spent $45 in repairs. So you into it for, let's say, $160, and you spent, let's say, another $10 in interest. That's $170, right? Mm-hmm. You want out? You want me to cut you a check for $170 right now?
Of course not.
Why not? Because you can sell it for $214.
I'm gonna even tell you that even if you don't sell, you decide to rent, it's still a good deal.
But the point of what I'm saying is that now you see the equity.
I'm completely happy with the property that I have. It's the deal. It's definitely very good.
The point that I'm trying to establish to show you guys is that when you are the person in Marcus's situation and you have a house that's listed at $214 and you feel comfortable looking at the comps that you can sell it at $214, even after paying the realtor's commission, 3% and 2% in closing costs, you can net $203. and you're into it, let's say 170, so you're looking at $33,000 there, and you're not about to just walk away from that 33. What I need you to learn is how to go from here, being afraid to pull the trigger to do a deal, to getting to the comfort level where you're doing a deal and making that $25,000 or $30,000 profit, and that profit can be a lot larger, right? I just did a video on my YouTube channel with a check for $75,000, and 2 weeks before that I did another video also with a check for $74,600 or something. So you can make a lot of money fixing and flipping houses. Marcus, any last final words that you'd like to add?
No, I think that, like I said before, just do it. Don't try to overanalyze. Like analytics people like me
for those of you
tend
that
to do it.
that have paralysis analysis and you're afraid to move forward, just at a certain point in time, I'm not saying you should move forward blindly. A person who acts without investigating, that's foolish. But what's worse than that, well, I'm not going to say worse than that, but what I don't like is people who investigate, but then are afraid to take and make a decision.
Right.
Because that will leave you in a worse place, right? So investigate, educate yourself, by all means, whether it's me or my program or any other real estate person out there or any other investment out there. But once you've gotten through that and you've read the testimonials and you've educated yourself and you've put that legwork in, then it's up to you to make that decision. That's the only thing that's on you that nobody else can help you with. Right. No one can, someone can line you up, they can bring you to the plate, they can hand the bat, and they can put it in your hands, but nobody can make you take that swing. Ultimately, that's up to you. And that's why in my boot camp, I spent so much time working on that concept of a fear needle and how you need to learn if your whole life is cautious and you go to a job and you get a check every 2 weeks and you know how much your mortgage is, you know how much your bills are, and your whole life is inside a box of comfort. You've never been outside of that comfort zone. You're going to need to learn how to get outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a while.
Without interrupting you, and I sympathize with the comments, because when you are in a job scenario situation, you get dragged by all the work environment, all those kind of things. You don't really have time to reflect. So if you don't have that vision, that focus, and that someone to get you by the hand, and keep you motivated, so you can go this extra mile and do all the analysis that you need to do, the decisions you need to make to move forward, then you see the progress. I think, it's very common, the fear builds up because, you're kind of in that environment, and then you just don't have time to look into your own, future, the way that you're going to really build your game plan, and unless you want to continue on that path of, the job.
Right. And also what happens is that
which is not forever, as you know, my life, I already got certain age, and and we have different experiences. It's a health or a layoff, or market goes bad, whatever, right? So one of the reasons that I have in my personal side is to be more independent, by my own, and be able to do that move, down the road. And I think this is something that definitely, I would say, don't let this opportunity pass by. There's always a reason. Go and check it out and make it happen.
Good, excellent, yeah. So very, very important points there. And I have a bunch of students with that philosophy, like my student Phil, who works as a computer programmer, but he's like in his early 50s, and he feels like he may get laid off at some point. And I think you have that same thought process as well. So the question is, well, if that day were to come, what's your plan? What's your plan B? And too many people don't have a plan B, right? And that's why what you think today could be risky, not making a move, what you'll find is that as time goes by and as you get older, it's going to become more and more and more difficult for you to embrace change, right? And all it takes is one little thing, like a layoff as an example, right? And it could put your entire financial situation in a downward spiral. But one way that you can be preemptive from that happening is that even while you have a full-time job, just like Marcus does, you can basically spend your spare time learning how to do something like this, and then you build up that comfort level, so that if I ask my student Phil, well, what would you do if they laid you off next week? And he says, well, I know exactly what I'll do. I've done 6 fix and flips, and I'm comfortable. I can do 4 a year, and that's enough money for me to pay my bills and cover my overhead, and I've got rental properties. And so he's got a working plan. And so now Marcus is working on completing his first fix and flip, and he might need to do 3 or 4 or 5, a certain number where he builds up that comfort level to say, you know what, I wouldn't be worried if I got laid off. And there might even come a point in time if you're doing 2 or 3 or 4 fix and flips at a time. Let's say you're making 25 or 30 per fix and flip, and you're doing 4 of them at a time. You're making 120,000. You're doing that twice a year. That's $240,000 a year. Suddenly, that $50 or $60 or $70,000 job doesn't seem as appealing anymore for you, because you start looking at it as an opportunity cost, and you start thinking, what if instead of waking up on Monday morning and going to work, I actually woke up on Monday morning and went and looked for properties and found 1 or 2 extra fix and flips. And that's how I want you guys to start thinking, right? It's a difference between the mentality of going to a job and working and trading your time for a paycheck, and every 2 weeks putting your hand out and saying, boss, please give me a check, versus saying, I am going to learn how to create money and opportunity for myself that's not dependent on anyone else. And if you can learn how to do that, if you can teach your children how to do that, that's a skill that's, in my opinion, way more valuable than going to college, because you're teaching them how to completely take care of themselves for a lifetime.
Yeah, and get into this environment, as soon as you can, because then you start to network and, with people like you, and you bring other folks, and, start to know how to do, this and that, get into the market, and you become a real investor. So your thoughts will be towards, how to make that happen, instead of, your, things that are keeping you on the job, mentality, concerns and things like that. Your attention gets really distracted. So I think the big game is to look for your own future, especially when you aged, and if I would have known this when I was younger, like Randy, it would be a completely different game.
But also the thing is, times have changed as well, because 30, 40 years ago, if you went and worked in a big corporate company, you were guaranteed to stay on a job in a certain period of time.
That's true. Yeah.
You retire and you get your golden watch, and you had a pension plan that you were taken care of. But the times have changed, the economies have changed, and now you can't rely on that. Now big companies are more likely to lay you off in your mid to late 50s and hire someone half your age at half the money, and then you find yourself in the situation where you never envisioned you could ever potentially be in it. If you haven't set yourself up, if you don't have the financial resources, if you've got too much credit card debt, like I said, that can be a bad setup to be in, right? So anyway, Marcus, thank you very much for coming in here today. I know that it wasn't easy for you to get out of work and swing by here and do a little video shoot. But
I do it, very, eager, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. And, like I said before, I'm looking forward to continue to do, to stand with you for a long time.
Good.
And that's the
excellent. So guys, there you heard it. This is Marcus, one of my students. He's from Brazil originally, and he's an engineer.
Sorry about my accent, folks.
He's an engineer, full time. He's doing this in his spare time. He's just completing his first fix and flip. And I do these videos and take the time to do them because I want someone like you that's sitting at home right now on YouTube or wherever you're watching this video, whatever platform it is. I want you to see that this is possible and that it's doable, and that you could be doing this too, all right? And if you want to learn how to do this, definitely look into my Fixing and Flipping Houses Bootcamp. It's a good place to start. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you.